Welcome to Reddit Raw. The stories are real. The people are anonymous. This is the internet unfiltered. Way back in the early 2000s, I began to suspect that my wife was up to something. Our two kids were about 4 and 6. They started talking a lot about staying with my wife's parents during the day. Since they lived about 90 minutes away, doing so 2 or 3 times a week seemed a bit much. When I asked her about it, she denied it, but was never a good liar. So I started tracking the mileage on her car, and sure enough, she was driving an extra 400 or so miles per week. I knew some shit was going on. Then one day, I sat down at the computer. She had left a sticky note with her AOL password written on it next to the keyboard. I could not resist. I logged in to read her emails, and I saw a few email exchanges between her and her college best friend. They discussed how my wife was regularly fucking one of her ex-boyfriends from high school. No mention of details about him, other than my wife also talking shit about his wife, making fun of how she'd gotten fat after having kids. Anyway, I printed out these email exchanges and stashed them. I still needed to know the details, so I called a friend who was a cop, and he suggested I call a guy he knew that had left the force to become a private investigator. Ron was great. I paid his retainer, gave him the emails, and what little I knew. He figured out exactly what she was doing. His report detailed, with photos and times, how she would take the kids to her parents, then go meet this guy for lunch, then they'd go to a dumpy motel for a few hours. At this point, I hired a divorce lawyer. My parents cheated on each other, and the fallout absolutely fucked up my childhood. It was something that was totally unacceptable. I also asked Ron to find out what he could about this guy. Ron absolutely came through. I learned his name was Bob, that he was married and had 3 kids. I also found out that he worked as a VP of sales for his father-in-law's business. At this point, I had my lawyer draw up the divorce papers. I also asked Ron for a couple more copies of his report, and for one more thing. On the same day I had my wife served with the divorce papers at her work, I had Ron meet with Bob's wife and show her everything he'd found out. She seemed nice, and I figured that she deserved to know what her dear hubby was up to. What she did with that information was up to her. While the information about my wife's infidelity didn't really matter in my divorce, Bob's wife did a real number on him. According to publicly available court documents, she cleaned out their joint account, took the kids, and left. As soon as her dad found out what he'd done, Bob was fired. And since her parents actually owned the house, he also got evicted. Their divorce was ugly, lots of fighting in, and evidently out of court. I guess Bob went to the house and started arguing with his wife. It escalated to the point that her brother stepped in, and Bob got his nose broken. There were restraining orders, a few more incidents with police reports, criminal charges, jail time, and so on. I can't find Bob on the internet anywhere these days. Last I heard, he'd left the state. His ex-wife did okay. She went to work at her dad's company and took over after he retired. As for me, my ex and I got along well enough. I didn't engage with her on anything that wasn't related to the kids. And now that they're both adults, I don't talk to her at all anymore. I don't hate her or anything. I only care in the context that she is my kid's mom. This story isn't just about getting even. It's a masterclass in how patience and strategy will always be more powerful than raw anger. The most satisfying revenge is when you simply reveal the truth and let a person's own bad choices destroy them. If you enjoyed that satisfying story of revenge, hit the like button and subscribe to Reddit Raw for more true, unfiltered stories from the darkest corners of the internet. Let me know who you sided with in the comments.